Hi guys, welcome back. So today I've got another tutorial for you where we're going to be looking at using the intersection observer, which is built into JavaScript, and we're going to be using it to create this kind of animate on scroll effect. Okay, as you can see, as we scroll down the page, we get our images reveal, and you'll see they're zoomed in at first and they zoom out as the image is revealed. Okay, so just to refresh that. Okay, so when the images come into the viewport, we get the animation applied. So this intersection observer is a really good way to implement this kind of animate on scroll functionality for your websites. It's a lot better performing than listening out for the scroll event, for example, which can be very CPU intensive. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, guys, and let's get going. Thanks. Okay guys, so to get started with this project, you can see I've got the three usual files. We have the index.html, style.css and app.js files. And you'll also see that I've got this images folder containing 5 images labeled 1 to 5 in that format. That's a very important naming convention we use for this project. And you'll see they're just all images of kind of random Mercedes images I found on unsplash.com. Use whatever images you want for this project, okay? So let's just start by going to our index.html file, get a boilerplate up and running. In the document title, I'm just going to say Mercedes-Benz, like so. And then in the head section, we'll just link to our style.css. And then in our body, we use the script source to our app.js file, like so. Okay. Now, coming into the body, next thing we want to do here is I'm just going to create a section. Okay, and then within this section, we're going to have a H2. And it's just going to have a title of Mercedes-Benz, like so. And then underneath this, we're going to have a div with a class of image-wrap. Okay, and then within this div, we're going to have another div of a class of image. Okay, and this image wrap is going to be used to kind of at first conceal the image, and then we're going to add some kind of animations to it just to reveal the image that it contains. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this section down 4 more times because we've got 5 images. I'm just going to change the headings we use as well. So for the second one, we'll just say AMG power. Use whatever you want, any kind of cheesy advertising line. Next thing we can do here, just say modern luxury. Underneath this, we'll say pioneering innovation. And then underneath this, finally, we'll just say superior performance. Like so, and we don't need that last section, so I'll just delete that. Okay, and that's pretty much it for our HTML, guys. So let me just open this in live server. One thing I do want to do actually is I do want to get a Poppins font. Okay, so let's just do that now. We'll say Poppins. Go to Google Fonts. I'll get the light version here. We'll just copy that link tag. Come to our header. Save that. And then we'll also just get the CSS selector, like so. Come back to our... next one I do is just go into our CSS. Okay, so let's just do that now. Style.css. I'm going to get my global selector here, and we'll just say margin 0, padding 0, box sizing, border box, and I'm just going to paste that font in there as well. So now you can see we've removed all our default margins and paddings, and you can see we've got that nice Poppins font applied. Okay, so next thing we want to do here is I'm just going to say I'm going to set the text color to white as well. Okay, it's going to have a dark background on this, so I'll just say set that to white. And then I'm going to come here, we say body. I'm going to set the background to background color. So that's that nice dark grey color. Okay, and then I'm also just going to say height 100%, width on there. Okay, and then width of 100% as well. Underneath this, actually that's it for our body for now. Yeah, that's it for now. That's all good. Okay, so now next we want to do here is I'm going to select each of our sections. So we'll just say section like so, and we're going to say position relative, and then we'll also say a height of 100 viewport heights. So that will space out each of our sections now, and then we'll also say again a width of 100%, and then I want to just set the overflow. Actually, no, I didn't set that. That's fine. Okay, so kind of underneath this, next thing we want to do here is select our image wraps. Okay, so say .image -wrap, and then here we're just going to say a width of first thing we'll do is actually set the position to relative, and then we'll say a top of 40%. Okay, and that will be a 40% from the relevant section, the parent section element, and then we'll also say a height of 40% as well. Okay, and then underneath this, we're going to give it an initial width of 1 pixel. Okay, because remember we're going to perform that animation which makes it fade out from the left, so makes it wider, revealing the inner image. Okay, so we start off at a very narrow 1 pixel, and then I'm also just going to set the overflow to hidden. This is very important because I don't want to see the image it contains, and then until we expand it, sorry, and then we're going to set the opacity at 0 for before we perform any animations, just so we can't see it on the screen. Okay, and then underneath this we're going to say .image -wrap .active. So this is when we apply the active class to this image wrap element, and then we're going to set the width after that to 40 viewport widths, and then we'll set the opacity to 1, and then we're just going to apply our transition settings here. So transition, and for our opacity, okay, we want it to just there to be no kind of delay there, so straight away 0 seconds. And for our width, when we make the adjustment from 1 pixel to 40 pixels, we want that to take a total of 2 seconds. Okay, so a nice kind of slow reveal effect. Okay, and that's it for our .image wrap active class. Next we want to do here is just say, so we'll say .image wrap .active. And so we're going to say when the, what's going on here? Okay, I'm having a nightmare. Okay, that's it. And then we'll say when our image wrap is active, and then we're going to select the image that it contains. And then here we're just going to say transform, and then we'll say scale of 1. And then underneath this, we'll say transition. And then here we're just going to say 1 second ease out. Okay, so what this does, when we apply the active, when our image wrap is active, the image it contains, we're going to transform it to scale it with 1. Okay, and that's just the original size of the image. Okay, we're going to start it off at quite larger, like 1.6 in size, which is quite large, and then as we apply this active class, it will just bring it down to size, the original size. And that transition is going to take 1 second, and we're also applying this kind of animation setting of ease out to make it a bit more smoother. Okay, now underneath this, let's just select our image next. So we'll say .image here, position absolute, top 0, left 0, width. I'm going to give this a width of 40 viewport widths. Okay, and then we're going to give it a height of 100% of the parent, which is the image wrap. And then what we're going to do underneath this is we're just going to say background size. I'm going to say cover, and then we're also going to say background position. And we're going to make that center. So this background cover will just fill the image to the actual image div, okay, and it will apply the correct kind of aspect ratio. So, but you might get kind of like some cropping on your image, okay, because it obviously if it's not the right size, if it doesn't fit the image or the div perfectly, you're obviously going to lose some elements of the image. Okay, and that's why I'm kind of positioning it center to the div, so we get the important parts of the image in view. And then I'm just going to say here transform, and we're going to set the scale when we're at 1.6. That will make the image slightly larger. When we apply the active class, it will make it the original size. And then I'm just going to apply one more filter on here. I'm going to say grayscale 100%, just to give the web page that kind of monochromatic kind of look. Okay, and then finally, all we want to do here is I'm just going to say H2. We'll set the position to absolute, the opacity to 0, top of 70%, like so. And then we'll also say a z index of 2 to bring it in front of the images. And then we'll say a transition of 0.2 seconds. And then underneath this, we're just going to say h2.active. So when we apply the active class again, we'll set the opacity to 1. And then we'll just say transition. And I'm just going to say 3 seconds here. Okay, to give that a nice slow fading effect. Okay, and that's it for our CSS, guys. Let's move to the JavaScript. Now, the first thing we want to do with our JavaScript is select all of our image wrap items. So I'm just going to say here, let image items equal. Then we're going to make that an array, and we're going to use the spread operator. We say document.query selector all, and then here we can just say .image -wrap, like so. Okay, and then underneath this, let's just console.log the image items just to make sure they are listed as an array. Come to our console. See, we have our array of image wraps there. Okay, that's great. So next what I do here is select our titles next to our h2 element. So I'll just say let titles. Again, we're going to use the array spread operator, documents.query selector all, and here we can just pass in the h2 tag name. Okay, and then underneath this, let's just change that like so. Okay, so next thing, what we're going to be using for this, guys, we're going to be using something called the intersection observer. Okay, so this is going to, it's a fairly new tool which is built into JavaScript, where we can basically create an observer instance and have it observe multiple elements on our page, and when they come into the viewport, we can then perform functions on those elements, such as apply an active class, that kind of thing, to perform CSS animations, do whatever you want really. So let's just get something going now. The first we need to do for our observer is create an options object. So we'll just say let options equal, and here this is going to take in two settings. So we'll say root margin, and we're going to set that to 0 pixels, and then also a threshold. We're going to set that to 0.2, so 20%. And what this root margin does, so the default root for our observer is the viewport or the body. Okay, and what we're doing here, we're setting the actual margin of for how we want to apply our thresholds. Okay, so we're setting it at 0 pixels because we only want to affect the changes when the elements come into the viewport. Okay, if we set, for example, the root margin to 100 pixels, it would take the 100 pixels below the viewport into consideration as well when performing the calculations. Okay, and this threshold here, this 20%, this is applied to the elements that we are observing. Okay, so if 20% of the element comes into the viewport past the root margin, then it will perform the function. Okay, but as we've applied a 0 root margin here, when the element comes 20% of its height into the viewport, it will trigger a callback function, which we're going to create now. So let's create that now. We'll say, I'm going to say let set item active. So this is the callback function which is going to be triggered when our item comes into the viewport. That's just going to equal. I'm going to pass in just the entries that we're observing. Okay, and then for now, I'm just going to say console.log entries. Okay, so don't want to perform anything now. I just want to show you what this does. And then underneath this, we're just going to say, create our observer instance. So we'll just say let observer equal new intersection observer, like so. And then this first argument it takes in is the callback function we want to apply. So we're going to just use that set item active callback. And then we also pass in the options as well, which we set up here. Okay. And then underneath this, next one I want to do here is I'm just going to say image items dot for each, and here we want to pass in the item and the index. Okay, and then here we're just going to say item, and then we want to select, remember each of our items is the image wrap, and each image wrap contains a child div which houses our image. So here we're just going to say dot children 0 for the first child, which is our image, and I'm just going to say dot style dot background image, and that's going to equal, and we're going to pass in some backticks here. I'm just going to say URL. We're going to then point this to our images folder. We'll do a template literal here, pass in the index +1. As you remember, we started our images with 1, 2, 3, didn't start at 0. That's why I added a 1 there. And I can just say .jpeg, like so. And then underneath this, I'm just going to say if the index, okay, mod2 equals 0, that means the number of the index is even. Then we're just going to say, let's do a question mark there. We'll say item.style.left, and then we're going to make that equal 55%. Otherwise, we'll say item.style.left. That's going to equal 5%. Okay, and then finally, what we want to do here is we're just going to next call our observer. So we'll say observer.observe, and then we can just pass in the item. Okay, so you'll see now we have our 5 intersection observers here for each of our image wraps. You'll see the target here, and you'll also see we have these kind of methods here. So you can see we have this is intersecting, and that's equal to true, as this element is currently on our screen. You'll notice with the others, so this is down, this is not on the screen, you'll see is intersecting is equal to false, is visible is false. Okay, so when these come into view, that will change, the is intersecting will change to true when they're on the screen. Okay, and you can see as we're console.log in the entries, it gets console logged. Okay, and then you can see, so if we scroll down to the bottom now, for instance, if we next open up, you see we get the we get each entry listed, and we can then see if they're intersecting or not. Okay, so next what I want to do here is I'm just going to do the same thing for our titles. So we'll say titles.forEach title, and then we can say here, actually I want to pass in the index as well, so say title index, and then here we can say I'm just going to copy this actually. Okay, and then I'm just going to say obviously change item to title, and here I'm just going to say if it's an even number, we'll put the text to 45% from the left, otherwise we'll say 35%. Okay, and then I'm just going to get our observer to observe the title as well. Okay, and then I think what we need to do now is just change our callback function to actually do something. So remember, we had this active class, so we're going to apply these to our image and our title. So to do that, let's come in here. I'm just going to say entries.forEach entry, and then here we can simply say if entry.is intersecting, that means it's on the viewport, intersecting, then we can say entry dot, remember we had for each entry, if we click in, we have the target. Okay, so we can set the target, which is the actual element. So we'll say entry.target dot class list dot add, and here we just say active. Okay, so it doesn't look like that's applied for our image items yet. Let me just see what's going on there. We get our text come in. You can see when we scroll down the page, the text is fading in, but why is our images not coming up? Let's just see what's going on. If we go, looks like we're getting some errors. Okay, it's not finding our images, so let's just make sure that's right. Our path, images, okay, /, and now you can see we get our images. Okay, so if I refresh this now, let's make this bigger. You can see now we get that nice transition effect. You can see we get that the images go from large to small when we scroll down. Okay, so see it's nice and large, and we get that kind of zoom out effect.
I couldn't find any matches in your.
Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it for this effect, guys. That's how you kind of get this effect going, this animate on scroll effect. Obviously, this is a lot more better for performance, you know, just as opposed to just listening out for the scroll event to perform these kind of functions. So yeah, I hope you got something out of this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Cheers.